My name is Isabella Moretti. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Florianopolis, Brazil. 3 years ago, I experienced something that completely transformed my understanding of life, death, and the message I was supposed to share with the world. What I'm about to tell you is not a story I've fabricated or embellished. It's the honest account of what happened to me, and why I believe the world needs to hear it right now. Before I dive into that fateful day, I need to take you back to who I was before everything changed. I was living what most people would call a successful life. As a marketing director for a multinational company, I had achieved the career milestones that society told me would bring happiness. My office overlooked the city. My salary allowed me to live comfortably. And from the outside, my life seemed picture perfect. But there was an emptiness inside me that no promotion, no paycheck, and no material possession could fill. I remember lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was truly all there was to existence. I questioned everything: my purpose, my faith, why I was here. I wasn't what you'd call deeply religious, but I wasn't an atheist either. I existed in that gray middle ground where many of us live, going through the motions without truly understanding the deeper meaning of life. My family worried about me. My mother, a devout Catholic, would invite me to church every Sunday, and I would politely decline. My best friend, Carolina, kept telling me I needed to slow down, to find meaning beyond my career. But I was too focused on climbing the corporate ladder to truly listen. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning. I had decided to take my motorcycle to work instead of my car. It was a beautiful day, the sun was shining, and I felt a strange sense of freedom riding through the coastal roads of Florianopolis. That feeling would be the last memory I had of my normal life. At 8:47 a.m., a delivery truck ran a red light and hit me at high speed. The impact was brutal. I remember the sound of screeching tires, the shattering of glass, and then nothing. Complete darkness. But that darkness wasn't emptiness. It was something else entirely. When I regained consciousness, or at least the awareness of consciousness, I found myself floating above my body. I could see it lying on the road, twisted and broken, with paramedics rushing toward it. I could see the blood, but I felt no pain. I could see the terror in the faces of the witnesses, but I felt only calm. It was the strangest sensation, to observe yourself from the outside, to see your physical form as merely a vessel that no longer contained you. I floated higher, rising above the accident scene, above the buildings, above the city itself. Colors became more vivid than I had ever perceived them. Reds were deeper, blues were infinite, and there were colors I had no names for, colors that seemed to exist beyond the spectrum of human language. As I ascended, I became aware of a presence. It wasn't something I could see with my eyes, but something I perceived with every fiber of my being, a consciousness, a love so overwhelming that I cannot find adequate words to describe it. This presence was warm, like being wrapped in the most comforting light imaginable, and it communicated with me not through words, but through direct knowing. I understood that I was safe, that I was loved, and that I was exactly where I needed to be. The fear that had gripped me when I first realized I was separated from my body dissipated completely. Then I saw him. I don't expect everyone to believe what I'm about to tell you, and that's okay. But I need to share this truth as I experienced it. I saw Jesus Christ, not as religious paintings had depicted him, but as a being of pure light and unconditional love. His presence was familiar, yet beyond anything I had ever encountered. He didn't speak words, but I understood his message clearly. He showed me my life, every moment, every choice, every interaction I had with another human being. I saw the times I had been kind and the times I had been selfish. I saw the impact of my words and actions on those around me, far more extensively than I had ever considered in my physical life. But then, his message became urgent. The light around him intensified, and I understood that he had something crucial to tell me. In that moment of divine communication, he conveyed a warning for humanity. The world is not ready. That was the core of the message, but it came with layers of meaning that I struggled to fully comprehend. He showed me visions of global upheaval, spiritual disconnection, and a critical window of time where humanity must awaken to a deeper truth about existence, about our interconnectedness, and about the choices we are making collectively. The warning wasn't meant to instill fear, but rather urgency and hope. Jesus emphasized that there is still time, but the window is closing. He showed me that the separation between us, the divisions we create based on religion, politics, nationality, and ideology, is an illusion. We are all connected to the same divine source, and every action we take ripples through the fabric of reality in ways we cannot yet perceive. The materialism that has gripped much of humanity, the endless pursuit of wealth and status at the expense of spiritual growth and human connection, is leading us toward a collective crisis. But he also showed me that this crisis is not meant to destroy us. It's meant to awaken us. One of the most profound parts of this vision involved the role of information and communication. Jesus showed me how the technology we have created, the internet, social media, digital connections, could be instruments of either greater human division or unprecedented human unity. He showed me that the choices we make about how we use these tools, how we communicate, what we choose to believe and share, matter enormously. He showed me that there are people around the world who are beginning to awaken, who are questioning the mainstream narratives, who are seeking deeper truth. He emphasized that these awakened individuals have a responsibility to share authentic experiences and messages, to cut through the noise of misinformation and materialism with genuine spiritual wisdom. Then, something shifted. The vision changed, and I felt myself being pulled back. It wasn't like falling. It was more like being gently drawn back towards something I had temporarily left behind. I understood that it wasn't my time to stay, that I had more work to do, and that I had been given a mission, to return to my body and to share this message with as many people as possible. The last thing I remember before the pain returned was feeling the overwhelming love one more time, and hearing, more felt than heard, the words, "Go back, tell them." There are only 3 days left in which the world can still choose differently. The pain was excruciating when I regained consciousness in the hospital. My body was broken in multiple places. I had suffered a severely fractured left leg, 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a traumatic brain injury. The doctors told me later that I had flatlined twice during the surgery, and they were shocked that I survived at all, let alone without permanent neurological damage. My recovery was slow and agonizing. There were moments when I regretted coming back, when the physical pain seemed unbearable compared to the peace I had experienced on the other side. But every time I felt that despair creeping in, I would remember the message, the urgency, and the mission. During my rehabilitation, I began to understand what that cryptic message meant. 3 days left. It wasn't literal days, but rather 3 stages or phases of human development through which we must pass. We are currently in the first phase, where the illusion of separation and material accumulation has reached its peak. The second phase will be a period of crisis and upheaval, as the systems we've built on false foundations begin to collapse. And the third phase, the final window, will be a brief period where humanity can still choose a different path, where we can collectively decide to realign with spiritual truth and universal love, rather than continuing down the path of destruction. When I was released from the hospital, I was determined to fulfill my mission. But I faced an immediate obstacle. I didn't have a platform. I wasn't an influencer or a public figure. How was I supposed to reach people with this message? I prayed and I asked for guidance. About 6 months into my recovery, after much contemplation and encouragement from my family and close friends, I decided to start sharing my story online. At first, I was terrified. I worried about judgment, about being called crazy or delusional. But I also understood that my fear was insignificant compared to the importance of the message. The response was overwhelming. Within weeks, thousands of people had watched my first video. Many reached out with their own stories of near-death experiences, spiritual awakenings, and their sense that something profound is shifting in the world. They told me that my message resonated with something deep within them, something they had been sensing but couldn't articulate. I began to understand that there are millions of people around the world who are hungry for authentic spiritual truth, who are tired of the materialism and superficiality of mainstream culture, and who are ready to awaken to a greater reality. But I also faced intense criticism. Skeptics called me delusional. Religious fundamentalists said I was being deceived by demons. Scientists explained my experience away as hallucinations caused by brain trauma and lack of oxygen. I understand these criticisms. In fact, I welcome them because they forced me to deeply examine my own experience, to question whether I was genuinely understanding what had happened or whether I was simply creating a narrative to make sense of trauma. But the more I examined my experience, the more certain I became that what happened to me was real and that the message was genuine. One of the most important aspects of my recovery process was understanding that this message isn't mine alone to bear. Jesus showed me that there are many people who have had similar experiences, who have received similar warnings, and who are also working to awaken humanity. Prophets and spiritual teachers throughout history have delivered nearly identical messages. that we are all one, that love is the fundamental force of the universe, that our choices matter, and that there is a critical window of opportunity for us to choose differently. The message is not new. It's ancient wisdom being revived for a world that desperately needs to hear it now. 3 years have passed since my accident. My physical body has healed completely, much to the amazement of my doctors. But more importantly, my spiritual consciousness has been forever transformed. I no longer experience the emptiness I felt before. I have found purpose and meaning in my mission to share this message. I have reconnected with my faith, though not in a dogmatic way, but in a genuine way that honors all spiritual traditions and recognizes the universal truth underlying them all. I need to be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that the world is going to end in 3 days or 3 years, or that there will be some catastrophic apocalyptic event. What I'm saying is that we are at a critical juncture in human history. The choices we make now, in this moment, will determine whether we evolve into a more conscious, compassionate, unified species, or whether we continue down a path of increasing division, environmental destruction, and spiritual disconnection. The urgency of the message is real, but so is the hope. We are not powerless victims of fate. We are conscious beings with the power to choose, to shift our perspective, to treat each other with greater compassion, and to realign with the fundamental truth that we are all connected. The specific warning that Jesus gave me had several components. First, there is a global spiritual crisis. Increasing numbers of people are experiencing depression, anxiety, and a sense of meaninglessness despite living in material abundance. Suicide rates are climbing, addiction is spreading, and there is a pervasive sense that something is fundamentally broken in our civilization. This spiritual crisis is the root cause of many of the other problems we face: environmental destruction, political polarization, inequality, and conflict. We are trying to solve spiritual problems with material and political solutions, and that approach is failing. Second, there is a crisis of truth and communication. We live in an age of unprecedented access to information, yet there is also unprecedented confusion about what is true. Misinformation spreads rapidly, authentic voices are drowned out by sensationalism, and people increasingly live in isolated bubbles of information that confirm their existing beliefs rather than challenging them to expand their understanding. Jesus showed me that this crisis of truth is perhaps the most critical, because it determines our ability to make conscious choices about the future. If we cannot agree on basic facts or access authentic wisdom, we cannot collectively navigate the challenges we face. Third, there is a crisis of connection and community. Modern life, despite all our technology that promises to connect us, has left many people more isolated than ever. We are experiencing an epidemic of loneliness. We have lost the sense of interdependence and community that held human societies together for millennia. We interact through screens more than through genuine human presence. We build walls instead of bridges. And this disconnection from each other is simultaneously a disconnection from our own humanity and from the divine consciousness that animates all of existence. But the vision also showed me that there is hope, tremendous hope. The awakening that is occurring is genuine. More people than ever before are questioning the dominant materialistic worldview and seeking deeper meaning. Spiritual practices like meditation, yoga, and prayer are becoming mainstream. There is growing recognition of the interconnectedness of all life and increasing concern for environmental protection and social justice. These are signs that humanity is ready to evolve, that we are capable of choosing differently. The most powerful part of Jesus' message, and the part that gives me the strength to continue my mission despite all the obstacles and criticism, is this: love wins. In the end, love wins. Not through force or domination, but through the simple, irresistible power of authentic connection and compassion. When you truly understand that every other person is an expression of the same divine consciousness that animates you, it becomes impossible to hate them or harm them. When you understand that we are all intimately connected, that every action ripples through the web of existence, it becomes impossible to be indifferent to suffering. I want to share more details about specific aspects of the vision that Jesus showed me. One of the most striking elements was how he showed me the future, not as something fixed and predetermined, but as multiple possible timelines branching from our current moment. In one timeline, humanity continues on its current path of materialism, division, and disconnection from nature. In this timeline, there are escalating crises, environmental collapse, resource wars, and increasing psychological and spiritual suffering. But this timeline is not inevitable. It is simply the continuation of the choices we are currently making. In another timeline, humanity awakens. Not overnight, not completely, but gradually more people begin to question the mainstream narratives and to seek authentic truth. More people begin to prioritize spiritual growth and human connection over material accumulation. More people recognize that we are all part of one global family and that our fates are intertwined. In this awakened timeline, humanity mobilizes its collective intelligence and compassion to address the challenges we face: environmental protection, technological development in service of human flourishing rather than exploitation, and the gradual transformation of institutions to serve authentic human needs rather than corporate profit. What Jesus emphasized was that the choice between these timelines is being made right now. The outcome is not determined, free will is real, and the actions of individuals matter. Every person who chooses to awaken, to question materialism, to treat others with compassion, to share authentic truth even when it goes against mainstream narratives, these actions shift the timeline. They add weight to the possibility of human awakening and transformation. One of the most challenging aspects of my mission has been learning to communicate this message in a way that doesn't sound crazy or fanatical. I have worked hard to express these spiritual truths in language that is accessible to modern secular minds while still preserving their essential meaning and power. I have read extensively in neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, and spirituality to deepen my understanding and to be able to dialogue with people from different worldviews. What I have discovered is that the core message is actually simple and universal. It can be expressed in spiritual language as "love your neighbor as yourself," or in secular language as "recognize the fundamental equality and dignity of all human beings." It can be expressed in environmental terms as "we live in an interconnected ecosystem where harm to one part harms the whole," or in quantum physics terms as "everything is fundamentally connected at the level of quantum entanglement." Different languages, same essential truth. I have also learned that there is a profound difference between intellectual understanding and experiential knowing. I can tell you intellectually that all humans have equal worth and dignity, and you might agree with me rationally. But when you have a direct experience of your fundamental oneness with all consciousness, when you perceive reality from a perspective beyond the illusion of separation, that understanding becomes visceral and undeniable. That is what my near-death experience gave me, and that is what I am trying to help others access through my message. Since I began sharing my story, I have received thousands of messages from people who have told me that my experience resonated with something within them. Some people have had their own spiritual experiences or near-death experiences that they had been afraid to share because of social stigma. Others have not had such experiences, but have felt a deep sense that something is shifting globally, and they have felt relieved to hear someone articulate what they were sensing. Still, others have told me that hearing my message prompted them to make significant changes in their lives, leaving unfulfilling careers, repairing broken relationships, reconnecting with their faith, or starting meditation and spiritual practice. The fact that people's lives are changing as a result of this message is for me the clearest evidence that it is genuine and important. Jesus' message has always been about transformation, not transformation through force or coercion, but through awakening people to truth and inviting them to choose a different way of living. That same dynamic is happening now. I am not convinced anyone to believe anything. I am simply sharing my authentic experience and the message I received, and people are responding by choosing to examine their own lives and make more conscious choices. I want to address something important for those of you who may be skeptical of my experience. I understand. I was skeptical of spiritual experiences and near-death experiences before this happened to me. If someone had told me this story a few years ago, I probably would have been skeptical too. But I would gently suggest that skepticism alone is not a complete approach to understanding reality. There are many things that exist beyond the current boundaries of scientific measurement and proof. Consciousness itself is still largely mysterious to science. The fact that scientists cannot explain something doesn't mean it didn't happen. It simply means our current tools of measurement are inadequate. Moreover, I would encourage skeptics to examine the fruit of the message. Does it lead to more compassion, more authentic connection, more ethical behavior, and more genuine happiness? Or does it lead to conflict, manipulation, and suffering? By their fruits you will know them, as Jesus said. I believe my message passes that test. It encourages people to become better versions of themselves, to treat others with greater kindness, and to align with what most wisdom traditions, whether spiritual or secular humanistic, recognize as core human values. I also want to address those who might be thinking, okay, this is an interesting story, but what am I supposed to do with this information? How does this affect my daily life? That is a fair and important question. The message is not meant to be abstract or impractical. It is meant to transform how you live your life right now. If you genuinely accept that we are all fundamentally connected and that our actions affect the whole of humanity and the planet, then that understanding should inform your choices. It means considering the ethics of your consumption, where your food comes from, who made your clothes, what your carbon footprint is. It means being mindful of the impact of your words and actions on those around you. It means choosing to communicate with integrity and authenticity rather than through manipulation or deception. It means prioritizing your relationships and genuine human connection over accumulating material possessions. It means questioning the narratives you have been fed by mainstream media, education, and consumer culture, and seeking out authentic truth even when it challenges what you have believed. It means developing spiritual practices, whether through prayer, meditation, time in nature, or other means, that help you maintain connection with something greater than yourself. It means recognizing that you have the power to shape the future through your choices and that your choices matter. For those who have felt a calling to share truth and to help awaken others, it means stepping into that role despite fear and criticism. It means finding your unique voice and gift and offering it in service to the collective awakening. It means forming communities of like-minded individuals who support each other in this journey of transformation. I want to be transparent about the challenges and criticisms I have faced since going public with my story. There have been attacks on my credibility, suggestions that I was hallucinating or that my brain injury caused delusions, accusations that I am exploiting my experience for fame or money. These criticisms have been painful, but they have also strengthened my resolve and my faith. Every attack that I have weathered has only made me more certain that the message is important and that there are forces opposed to its widespread dissemination. I have also faced criticisms from within spiritual and religious communities. Some have suggested that my experience was not genuine, that Jesus would not communicate in the way I described. Others have suggested that I am misinterpreting the message or that I am arrogant to claim to have received a direct message from Jesus. These criticisms have been harder for me to weather because they come from people who share my spiritual framework. But I have learned that throughout history, prophets and spiritual messengers have faced criticism from religious institutions. This is not necessarily a sign that the message is false. It may simply be a sign that the message challenges institutional power or conventional theological understanding. What has sustained me through all of these challenges is my direct experience. I cannot deny what I experienced. I cannot unsee what I saw. And I cannot unhear or unfeel the message I received. Even if every person on earth told me that my experience was false, I would still know the truth of it in my being. That is the power of experiential knowledge. It is more robust than any external criticism. I have also been sustained by the community of people who have resonated with my message and who have joined me in this mission to awaken humanity. We communicate through my social media channels, through online communities, and increasingly through in-person gatherings. We support each other, share our own spiritual experiences and insights, and work together to spread the message in our own unique ways. There is tremendous power in knowing that you are not alone, that there are thousands of people around the world who are awakening to the same truths and who share the same vision for a more compassionate, conscious humanity. As I reflect on the 3 years since my accident, I realize that the experience of nearly dying was not about me getting a special message or special status. It was about being given clarity about what is real and what matters. What is real is consciousness, love, connection, and the fundamental unity of all existence. What is real is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not material beings having random experiences. What is real is that every human being has infinite worth and dignity. What matters is how we treat each other, how we care for our planet, and whether we choose to evolve or to remain trapped in illusion and separation. I believe that we are in a pivotal moment in human history. The vision that Jesus showed me is not meant to be apocalyptic or fear-based. It is meant to be clarifying and empowering. We have a choice. The window is still open, but it is closing. The 3 days, the 3 phases of human development, are upon us. The first phase of illusion and separation has reached its limit. We are beginning to enter the second phase of crisis and awakening. And the third phase, the final window of genuine choice, is coming. What will you choose? Will you continue living in unconsciousness, pursuing material accumulation and status, while ignoring the spiritual hunger within you? Or will you awaken? Will you question the narratives you have been told? Will you seek authentic truth? Will you prioritize genuine human connection and spiritual development? Will you make your choices based on how they affect the collective well-being of humanity and the planet, rather than on how they benefit you individually? Here is what I want to ask you to do right now. First, I want you to write something in the comments below. I want to know, has this message resonated with you? Have you sensed that something is shifting in the world? Do you have your own story of spiritual awakening or near-death experience that you have been afraid to share? What would change in your life if you genuinely accepted that we are all fundamentally connected and that your actions matter? Your response matters. When you write in the comments, you are not just responding to me. You are creating a record of human awakening. You are adding your voice to the chorus of people around the world who are beginning to see through the illusion of separation and to recognize our fundamental unity. And you are giving encouragement to others who are on this journey. Second, I want to invite you to share this video with 3 people who you think need to hear this message. Not to convince them or to force them to believe anything, but simply to offer them the opportunity to hear something that might resonate with them. Your sharing amplifies the message. Each person who shares multiplies the impact exponentially. If each person who watches this video shares it with 3 others, and each of those people shares it with 3 others, we will reach millions of people within weeks. Third, I want to invite you to consider supporting this mission through a super thank you. If this message has value for you, if it has sparked something within you or helped you feel less alone in your spiritual journey, then supporting the channel helps me continue to create content, to reach more people, and to deepen my own spiritual work. But this is never an obligation. The message is the same whether you support financially or not. Your presence, your engagement, and your willingness to share the truth is already invaluable support. As we move forward together in this journey of awakening, I want you to know that I am not asking you to blindly follow me or to believe everything I say. I am asking you to trust your own inner knowing, to develop your own direct connection with the divine, to question everything, and to seek your own truth. My role is simply to be a mirror, to reflect back to you what you already sense deep within, that there is more to reality than what we have been taught, that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that you are part of something infinite and eternal. The message from Jesus was clear. The world is not ready, but that does not mean the world cannot be ready. That does not mean we are victims of fate. It means that there is work to be done, urgency to our mission, and tremendous hope in the possibility of transformation. Every person who awakens becomes a beacon of light for others. Every person who chooses love over fear, truth over illusion, and connection over separation contributes to the collective shift. I am asking you to join me in this mission, not in a cult-like way where you surrender your critical thinking or your free will, but in the most fundamental way possible, by choosing to wake up, to live consciously, to treat others with compassion, and to share authentic truth. This is the real revolution. This is how we change the world, not through violence or domination, but through the irresistible power of love and truth. So here is my final call to you. Write something in the comments. Share this video with 3 people. And if you feel moved to do so, support the channel through a super thank you. But most importantly, choose to awaken, choose to question, choose to love, choose to act with integrity, choose to believe that your life matters and that your choices contribute to the future of humanity. The 3 days are counting down, the window is closing, but there is still time, there is still hope, and there is still tremendous beauty and possibility ahead for humanity if we choose it. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this mission of awakening. And thank you for sharing your truth in the comments below. I am honored to journey with you toward a more conscious, compassionate, and awakened world. One more thing that I want to emphasize about the vision Jesus showed me is the role of technology in the coming transformation. He didn't show technology as inherently evil or good. Rather, he showed how the same tools can either serve liberation or enslavement depending on the consciousness of those who wield them. Artificial intelligence, for example, could either be used to manipulate and control populations or to augment human creativity and solve problems that plague humanity. Jesus showed me that the next phase of human evolution will involve humanity learning to master its own creations, to ensure that technology serves our highest values rather than our basest instincts. This requires a fundamental shift in consciousness among those who develop and deploy technology. It requires asking not, can we build this, but should we build this? Will this serve the flourishing of all life? He also showed me specific geographic regions where this awakening is already taking place most powerfully. While the awakening is global, there are certain areas where communities are forming, where conscious individuals are gathering, and where new models of living based on connection and sustainability are being developed. These communities are like seeds of a new world, models for how humanity could organize itself differently. One profound aspect of my recovery that I haven't fully articulated until now is the spiritual crisis I faced in the months after my near-death experience. I had tasted something so extraordinary, experienced such profound peace and love, that returning to normal material existence felt crushing. There was a period where I struggled with suicidal ideation, not because I wanted to die, but because I desperately missed that state of consciousness. I wanted to go back to the other side, to that peace and light. It took time and spiritual guidance to understand that this crisis was actually part of my initiation. Jesus showed me through this struggle that the purpose of returning to physical life after a near-death experience is not to escape into spiritual bypassing or to despise material reality. Rather, it's to bring the consciousness we accessed on the other side into this world. It's to spiritualize matter, to transform physical reality through the power of awakened consciousness. This understanding transformed my relationship with my body and with physical life. Instead of seeing my body as a prison, I began to see it as an instrument through which spiritual consciousness could express itself in the world. Instead of despising the material world, I began to see it as sacred. Every atom infused with divine consciousness, every interaction an opportunity to practice presence and love. I want to address a question that I know many of you are thinking. If this message is so important, why hasn't it reached more people? Why hasn't it been covered by mainstream media? Why don't more influential people know about it? The answer, unfortunately, is that there are significant obstacles to authentic spiritual truth reaching mass consciousness in our current age. The first obstacle is economic. Mainstream media is controlled by corporations with vested interests in maintaining the status quo of materialism and consumption, a message that encourages people to question materialism and to prioritize spiritual growth over material accumulation threatens the economic model upon which these corporations depend. Therefore, authentic spiritual messages are systematically marginalized or suppressed by mainstream media. The second obstacle is psychological. Most people are not ready to hear this message. This is not a judgment. It's simply an observation of where most of humanity currently stands in terms of consciousness. To genuinely hear and integrate a message about universal interconnection and the imperative to evolve requires a certain level of spiritual maturity and openness. Many people are still too embedded in materialist consciousness to even conceive of what I'm describing. The third obstacle is institutional. Religious institutions have often become tools of control rather than instruments of genuine spiritual awakening. Many organized religions have become complicit with political and economic power structures. Therefore, genuine spiritual messages often face resistance from religious authorities who sense that the message threatens institutional power. But these obstacles are not reasons for despair. They are simply part of the pattern throughout history. Every genuine spiritual awakening has faced these same obstacles, yet the message persists. It spreads through person-to-person contact, through authentic testimonies, through direct experience and resonance. That is why I keep emphasizing the importance of your sharing this message with 3 people. That is how transformation happens, one person at a time, one genuine conversation at a time. I also want to speak directly to anyone who has had their own near-death experience or profound spiritual experience and has been afraid to share it. I want to tell you, your experience is valid. Your truth is important. The world needs to hear your story. Yes, you will face criticism and skepticism. Yes, there will be people who judge you or dismiss your experience, but there will also be people whose lives are completely transformed by hearing your authentic testimony. If you have had an NDE or spiritual experience, I am inviting you to consider sharing it. Not everyone needs to become a content creator or a public figure. But if you know people in your circles, if you have a platform, even a small one, I encourage you to share. Find your own unique voice and expression, but share the truth of what you experienced. This is how the collective awakening accelerates. I also want to speak to the skeptics and critics who are watching this. I want to thank you, actually. Your skepticism serves an important function. It pushes me and others like me to be more rigorous, more honest, more careful in how we present these experiences. Healthy skepticism is important, but I would gently suggest that total materialism is also a form of dogma, a belief system that is just as unprovable as any religious belief. It is possible to be skeptical while remaining open. It is possible to question while also remaining curious about experiences that fall outside our current paradigms of understanding. The final thing I want to share with you is a direct invitation. Jesus' message was not just for me, it is for all of humanity. Every single person reading or listening to this has a role to play in the awakening. You might not be called to be a public messenger like I am, but you are called to awaken within yourself. You are called to choose love. You are called to contribute your unique gifts and presence to the transformation of consciousness that is occurring. What are your gifts? What do you do well? What brings you alive? Whatever it is, I encourage you to consider how you can offer those gifts in service to the collective awakening. The awakening doesn't need only spiritual teachers or prophets. It needs artists, scientists, activists, healers, teachers, engineers, farmers, parents, workers, all awakened, all offering their gifts with integrity and love. The 3 days are almost up. The window is closing, but you are here now. You have heard this message. You have been given this opportunity. What will you do with it? I am asking you one final time. Write in the comments. Tell me what resonates with you. Tell me your story. Tell me what you are sensing about the future. Tell me how you want to participate in this awakening. Your comment is not just for me. It is for everyone who watches this video. Your authentic sharing will reach someone who desperately needs to hear it. And please, share this video with 3 people. That's all it takes. 3 people. You already know who they are. Don't overthink it. Send them this link. Tell them you think they need to hear this. Let the universe work through you to reach the people who are ready to awaken. And if you feel called to support this mission, if this message has genuinely helped you, please do so through a super thank you. But whether you do or not, know that your presence here matters. Know that your willingness to watch and engage with this message is itself a form of participation in the collective awakening. As we conclude, I want you to remember something essential. You are not alone. There are thousands of us who have had similar experiences, who have received similar messages, who are working in our own ways to awaken humanity. You are part of a global movement of consciousness. Millions of people around the world are waking up right now. You can feel it. You can sense it. This is real. The world is not ready, but it is becoming ready. And you are part of what is making it ready. Every conscious choice you make ripples out. Every act of genuine love affects the fabric of reality. Every person you inspire to awaken multiplies the impact. This is the real power. This is how we change the world. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your openness. Thank you for being here in this critical moment of human history. I am deeply honored to share this journey with you. Remember, the message is simple. We are all one. Love is real. Your choices matter. And the time to awaken is now. Blessings to you. Namaste. And I'll see you in the comments. There is one more aspect of my journey that I feel deeply called to share with you, and that is about the nature of service and how it has transformed my life since the accident. When I first returned from my near-death experience, I was driven by a sense of urgency, almost frantic, to share the message as quickly as possible. I thought that if I could just reach enough people fast enough, we could change the trajectory of humanity. But over these 3 years, I have learned a much deeper understanding of what it means to be in service to a higher purpose. True service is not about ego or ambition. It is not about how many people you reach or how famous you become. True service is about showing up with integrity and authenticity, day after day, doing the work that is in front of you, and trusting that the impact will unfold in ways you cannot control or predict. It is about releasing attachment to outcomes and focusing instead on the quality of your presence and intention. This shift in understanding has liberated me tremendously. I no longer measure my success by view counts or subscriber numbers. Instead, I measure it by the sincerity with which I show up, by the authenticity of what I share, and by the love I feel for everyone who encounters this message. I have learned that one person genuinely touched and transformed by this message is worth more than 1 million people who merely consume it as entertainment. I also want to speak about the role of suffering and hardship in spiritual awakening. The accident that nearly took my life was the most traumatic event of my existence, and yet it was also the greatest gift I have ever received. This paradox is something that is difficult for people to understand, particularly in a culture that views suffering as something to be avoided at all costs. But the truth is that the greatest growth and transformation often comes through our most difficult experiences. When you are broken open by life, when your normal defenses and strategies no longer work, when you are forced to confront mortality and the fragility of existence, you have an opportunity. In that broken space, when the egoic structures that normally protect you have collapsed, there is an opening for genuine spiritual awakening. This is not to glorify suffering or to suggest that suffering is necessary or good. Rather, It is to acknowledge that when suffering comes, as it inevitably does for all humans, it can be transformed into profound wisdom and spiritual growth. I have worked with many people in my community who have experienced their own traumas and crises. Nearly all of them, looking back, can see how the crisis became a turning point, how it led them to greater consciousness and more authentic living. This does not mean the suffering was worth it or that they are grateful for it, but it does mean that they were able to extract meaning and growth from it, that they did not allow it to destroy them, and that they have emerged more whole and more awake. For those of you who are currently going through difficult times, who are suffering, who are in despair, I want to offer you this perspective. Your suffering is not meaningless. It is not just random cruelty from an indifferent universe. Your suffering is an invitation to wake up, to look deeper, to question your assumptions about what life is supposed to be like, and to discover your own capacity for resilience and transformation. This does not make your suffering easy or acceptable, but it does give it meaning and purpose. I also want to address something that has been weighing on my heart: the question of hope. Is it realistic to hope for a global awakening? Is it naive to believe that humanity can change course? When I look at the state of the world, the environmental destruction, the political polarization, the wars, the suffering, it is easy to fall into despair. And I would be dishonest if I did not acknowledge that I have had moments of despair. But then I remember my vision. I remember seeing the multiple timelines, the multiple possibilities for the future. I remember understanding that the outcome is not determined, that free will is real, and that human consciousness has the power to shape reality. And I remember what Jesus emphasized, that love always wins in the end. Not because love is naive or weak, but because love is the fundamental force of the universe. Consciousness is love. Creation itself is an expression of love. And therefore, ultimately, love must win. But this victory is not automatic. It requires our participation. It requires that each of us choose moment by moment to align with love rather than fear, with truth rather than illusion, with connection rather than separation. The global awakening is not something that will happen to us. It is something that we create through our choices and our actions. I want to be very clear about one thing. I am not predicting a specific timeline for transformation. I am not saying that humanity will awaken by 2030 or 2050 or any other specific date. What I am saying is that we are at a critical juncture, and the choices we make now will determine the future. The 3 days that Jesus spoke of are not calendar days, but phases of evolution, and we are in the midst of these phases right now. Some of you may feel inspired by this message and may want to join more formally in this mission of awakening. I want to invite you to consider starting a local circle or group where you live. Find people who resonate with this message, who sense that something is shifting, who want to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Meet regularly, share your experiences, support each other, do spiritual practices together, create community. This is how the awakening spreads. Not through top-down hierarchies, but through local, authentic communities of awakened individuals. I also want to acknowledge that this path is not easy. Choosing to live consciously, to speak truth in a world of deception, to prioritize spiritual growth in a culture obsessed with material accumulation, these choices come with costs. You may face judgment from people who do not understand. You may struggle financially if you step away from careers that compromise your integrity. You may experience loneliness if your values diverge from those of your family or community. But you will also experience something that few people ever experience: the profound fulfillment that comes from living in alignment with your deepest truth. You will experience genuine connection with others who are also awake. You will experience the joy of contributing to something greater than yourself. You will experience the grace and support of the universe when you make choices based on love rather than fear. As we move toward the conclusion of this message, I want to say thank you one final time. Thank you for taking the time to listen, to engage, to consider what I have shared. Your willingness to be open to possibilities beyond the mainstream narrative is itself an act of consciousness. Your willingness to question, to seek, to grow. These are revolutionary acts in a world that benefits from people remaining asleep and unconscious. I want to leave you with one final meditation. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to take 10 minutes. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and ask yourself one question. If I knew that my choices mattered, if I knew that every action I take affects the entire web of humanity and creation, if I knew that I had the power to contribute to the awakening of consciousness on this planet, how would I live differently starting tomorrow? Sit with that question. Don't try to answer it intellectually. Let the answer emerge from your heart. And then, when you are ready, commit to one specific action you can take tomorrow that flows from that deeper knowing. Maybe it is having a genuine conversation with someone. Maybe it is meditating. Maybe it is doing something kind for a stranger. Maybe it is standing up for truth even when it costs you. Whatever it is, commit to it. And then take that action. And notice what changes in your life as a result. Because I promise you, when you start living consciously, when you start making choices based on love and truth rather than fear and illusion, your entire life begins to transform. Not just your external circumstances, though those may change too, but your internal experience, your sense of meaning and purpose, your connections with others, your relationship with yourself. The world is not ready, but you are becoming ready. We are all becoming ready together. And that is the message of hope and transformation that I want to leave you with today. Thank you. Blessings to you, and I will see you in the comments.